Business here is approval of the minutes from the March 9th, 2016 meeting. Has everybody had a chance to review those minutes?
Make a motion, we approve the minutes.
Second.
Motion's been made and second to approve the minutes. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Next item on the agenda is the Prairie Heights Lift Station update, which is an informational item. Bob, you handling that?
Well, I'm pleased to announce that the project is past done. Everything's been pretty well closed out, and we had some issues at the end of the project, and those have been taken care of too. And what John is passing out now is part of this presentation that Bowen and Butler Fairman did, just to give you an idea of the cost savings that was seen in this project because of the way it was done, which was energy savings program. So I'm going to turn it over to John, and then we'll go from there.
Welcome, John.
Hi, guys. I'll just go through the agenda quick. We're going to be hopefully pretty brief unless we have any questions. If anybody has any questions throughout the presentation, please let us know. Quick agenda, we're going to go through the project purpose, touch on guaranteed savings contracts a little bit more, look at the project challenges that were overcome, and then talk about some conclusions that we drew from this project. Just kind of to recap, I think we have some new board members from when we first started this project. The purpose of the project was to eliminate 2 existing lift stations. These lift stations, as you can see on the map here, were actually located within flood zones and had issues in the past with flooding and with maintenance. We looked to get rid of 2 lift stations, the Prairie Heights lift station and then the KFC lift station, and combine those into one. On the next slide, you can see this is actually a copy of a plan set from the former KFC lift station. The lift station, both of them were canister style and 40 years old. Maintenance issues included not just with the age, but actually with finding parts. Both of those manufacturers had gone out of business. So now that I've kind of established the project purpose, I'll have Steve Nutt from Bowen come talk a little bit about the guaranteed savings contract method we used.
Good afternoon. My name is Steve Nutt. I head up the Guaranteed Savings Contract program for Bowen Engineering, and the overhead's apparently not working, so everyone has a hard copy of what. So I'm on currently this slide right here, and so the code to do guaranteed savings contracts, and any questions at any point in time you can stop me, but the code for this 36-1-12.5 has been in place for over 20 years, and the water wastewater improvements were added over 10 years ago. This code has been widely used across the state of Indiana. There's probably 300 to 400 school and county projects that have been done, and in the last 10 years, Bowen has done 52 water or wastewater projects through this alternative procurement method, and we're the leading provider currently in the state. It's worth mentioning that Butler Fairman is the leading engineer in doing most of the projects that we've done as well. So there's a lot of experience that was utilized on this project for Lebanon Utilities. One of the, as you can see by the picture, which unfortunately we can't see, but hopefully you see it there, it's sort of a cute little picture that shows that obviously the boat that's there, thank you, is a boat of a contractor, and the change order boat is much larger than the original contract. And Not to make light of this, but typically, some clients have had struggles with change orders, and with the guaranteed savings method, there are no change orders, so there's cost control, there's quality of getting the job done right, and then there's speed and flexibility in terms of when you can start and stop a job to completion. And the project, the Prairie Heights project that we did here was able to enjoy all of those benefits. The reason why they were able to enjoy those benefits is because of this. Through this alternative procurement method, it allows the team to basically focus on your project. And so from the start all the way through completion, and when I say the start, we're talking about design. Early in the design process, we teamed with Butler Fairman and the utility to start looking at this project. And with this method, all the way through to completion, the number one goal is the goal of the project and nothing else. The good news is that Lebanon Utilities, to this point, has done 2 of these with this same team. The Sugar Creek Water Treatment Plant was done 4 years ago, and that project was successfully completed, and we actually gave back over $27,000 of construction savings back to the utility when that project was completed. This project, however, because of some of the challenges that we had on it, we not only ended up burning through our fixed fee, which is our overhead and profit, but we ended up expending another $375,000 to get this project completed for the utility. Once again, the overall goal was to make sure your job was done and done right. So from this point, I'm going to turn it back over to John, who's going to talk about some of the challenges that we were able to overcome during the project.
So as Steve was discussing, we did encounter some problems with this project. It'd be great to get up and be able to always give a presentation where everything went perfectly, but the goal of the team is to work together to get through these projects, and through these challenges. So we titled these slide Project Challenges Overcome because we were able to overcome all the challenges and provide a successful project to Lebanon Utilities. The first challenge that we had was with some right-of-way and then proposed alignments. We had some concerns from property owners and some issues in getting easements. We had help from Lebanon Utilities and from Jeff Jacob in order to find the best route that fit everyone's needs. So we were able to overcome those issues and find a correct right-of-way and alignment that fit with the project goals. We also had an issue come up over electric service territory and where exactly the lift station fell along boundaries. What we found was while Lebanon Utility Service Board did own the property, there was a split from where their electric service territory actually was. We were a couple feet off. So again, another project challenge that we were able to come to a solution to work through and get the project completed. I'm going to hand it off to another member of Bowen's team, Paul Carisi, who was the project manager on the project.
Thanks, John. So on our next slide, it's to discuss the project challenges for dewatering and kind of some of the winter weather we faced in the construction phases of this job. The scope of work included an installation of a 35-foot deep wet well for the lift station and approximately 1,600 lineal feet of 12-inch sanitary piping at depths ranging from 25 to 28 feet deep. So that comes with a share of dewatering challenges once we get to that depth from grade. These combine with installation of 3 dewatering wells in order to install the 35-foot deep wet well at the lift station, and continuous dewatering efforts as we moved our trenched excavation to install the 1,600 lineal feet of new sanitary piping. In relation to that, as some of the front-end challenges of the job pushed schedule out into the winter weather conditions, we did face additional challenges in related to overall production loss due to the colder temperatures, sometimes extreme temperatures below 10 degrees, and also that's directly impacting to our dewatering operations for the project as well, as we would have pump failure issues or freezing hoses in all the freezing temperatures during that time period. The next slide is in another challenge overcome as it relates to directional drilling repairs. So 2 portions of the project involve directional drill operations for sanitary gravity lines. However, due to some existing soil conditions, during the install of these gravity lines, they encountered some slope elevation issues within the line that were later discovered after installation, which obviously both lines required a repair. Each of these lines were addressed as soon as possible in order to correct the deficiency. The challenges encompassed involved creek crossing repair for one sanitary line that's pictured in the slide, and the other a repair from our upstream manhole structure to the wet well at approximately a 30-foot depth for the line repair that also coincided with a close proximity to existing billboard foundation. Still at this point, we were able to accomplish the repairs and meet the needs of the owner in order to finish the project strong. At this time, I think I'll turn it over to John Brand and Steve Nutt in order to discuss the project conclusions.
Thank you. As Paul noted, I'm John Brand with Butler, Fairman, Seifert Engineers, and wanted to touch on conclusions of the project. I think the first thing that I'll say that with some of the challenges that occurred with this project during land acquisition or the surprise, I think Pete, he was probably even surprised for people in the electrical department of when we're months into construction, we find out that RMC says this is our service area. Surprises like that honestly could not have been anticipated, that the collaborative slide that Steve Nutt showed where the owner, Lebanon Utilities, Bob, and at that time Jay, and Bowen and Butler Fairman come together to come with resolutions to keep the project moving, not have significant delays in time, get the project completed within the time frame to beat the spring rains with the project. I think it's fair to say if this had been a design bid build or a conventional type project, that wouldn't have happened with the challenges that occurred here. So we're, and one example in the right-of-way acquisition, I know Jeff spent a huge amount of time on negotiating with some of the property owners out there, and some of those things were changing almost daily as they went through the negotiations. So the coordination and the collaboration of the entire team, the construction team and the engineering team, to keep the project moving while the easement acquisition takes place, to make the corrections to the property owner. That was something that was key to the project, and if it was a design bid build project, that wouldn't have gone that well. It would have been probably a little bit more of pointing fingers and waiting on the owner to get things figured out as opposed to everybody working together. So the end result was a project that still served its purpose. No changes in cost to the utilities. Steve had mentioned that there was Bowen exceeded their cost or their budget on the project. Butler, Fairman, and Seifert did as well. We went through a couple iterations on the right-of-way negotiations and property acquisition, that sort of thing, without increases to Lebanon Utilities. So you had a project that was delivered within the time frame that was given and without an increase in cost. We're happy to be able to say that. We had some challenges as we went through it. Bob, do you want to kind of wrap up anything from the owner's perspective, and then we can turn it over to any questions that the board would have?
I think that in the end of all this, what we did get was a project that we wanted to see, and we did not have to pay another $377,000 to do that. And we would have had to have done quite a bit with these changes to be able to do the scope of change in direction to look at what we had to do with getting the acquisitions of this right away and those costs. It was also, the project team worked really hard to keep the people over in Prairie Heights, keep them to control that construction work, to mitigate the impacts of the construction work on those people. Because we really had to tear up that whole section over there to get through and do that around the old lift station, and then, which meant drives, a lot of driveways, sidewalks, and road structure, and yard work, even across Manor Drive, where they had to get and do that bore setup. So there was just a lot more to the project that it turned out than what originally was seen far as a scope. So I think everybody stepped up to the plate and performed in a manner that the utility should be very, very pleased with. Because again, we saved quite a bit of money. Had we had done it through a different path, that cost would have been incurred, especially during the winter months which slowed the project tremendously down. And that was because we had to end up moving the project. So there was quite a bit of change. So we just wanted the board to be aware of those changes and the impacts that were seen. So any questions?
Questions for the group? Bowen, Butler, Fairman, Bob?
I've got a couple. I wasn't on the board when this thing started, but I assume the Prairie Heights or the other two lift stations were converted into manholes or something.
I'm sorry, the other two?
The other two lift stations, the existing lift stations, were abandoned and converted into manholes.
Well, they were abandoned in place, and the wet wells were used. They were dry well canisters, and so those canisters were then cut below grade and then filled with material and capped and then
Okay.
buried over is how those were addressed.
Okay. I happened to be walking the trail this past weekend, looking out across there. It looked like there's no grass growing yet. Is there still some more grading to do, or where are we at with
There
that?
is some more grading. Again, they haven't been able to get out and do a lot of that grading at this point because of the settling that's going on. Again, this was a very deep structure around there, and because of that, we've had a lot of wet weather, and it got finished during the winter months, so there wasn't any way that we could finish that, put that top coating on with grass or anything, at least not yet. It's got to settle. Again, that was like 35 feet deep, so.
That's a remaining item to be completed, Gary,
Okay.
that will be done.
Okay.
So Paul can speak to the exact timing if you want to hear, but that's.
No, that's fine. I just didn't know where we stood in the
No,
filing out
it's a
the
good question.
project. and-
Right.
Right.
Okay.
It had temporary erosion control added, and then final restoration is happening here.
So-
Once the weather turns a little bit.
Okay, last question. With the Guaranteed Savings Program now, you monitor this over a 10-year period to verify that we are saving a certain amount of energy? Is that the way this
Steve, you
thing
wanna answer
works?
the savings?
Steve, question?
Yes, the code in Indiana requires that a form be filled out for, and it now goes to, instead of the Department of Energy, the Department of Local Government Finance, DLGF office. That form for water and wastewater projects allows us to look at energy savings, operational savings from that lift stations being abandoned, and also future capital avoided. So if Lebanon Utilities knows that they have to incur some of those costs, those capital costs will be documented. Because of this procurement method and the way it's used for water and wastewater, one of the allowances in the code allows you to stipulate the savings, which we did for this agreement. And so it's based on industry engineering standards. And because of that, the savings is filled out and sent in by Bowen at no cost to Lebanon Utilities. So we'll be following through on that for you, and we'll notify Bob, and we've been doing that with the water treatment plant, Yeah, Sugar Creek plant, we'll be doing that for you at no cost.
What the statutory limit, is it 20, Steve?
The term is 20 years. and
20 years.
Yeah, 20 years. They extended it in 2002 from 10 to 20. Another good question.
No questions, Jeff, or deja vu? All right.
No, I smiled though when you were talking about the land acquisition.
We appreciate your efforts and leading us through that.
Thank you
Last
very
thing
much.
that we'll say is thank you very much for the opportunity to work on the project. Back when this thing initially started, we had a flood event where those canister lift stations got flooded, Gary, and it was a bad thing for that particular area. So to get the construction done and remove that risk for utilities, we really appreciate the opportunity to work on it, and glad to say that that problem has been solved. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, the next thing on the agenda is Structure Point Amendment 3, Indianapolis Avenue Sanitary Sewer. And that's an action item. Bob, are you leading that one?
I think I'll start it,
Okay.
and then Cindy can take over if there's any major questions that you need to go through. Basically, what we're asking the board to do to authorize an agreement with Structure Point. I don't know if everybody remembers, but in the first phase, because of budgetary reasons, we did drop off the gravity sanitary portion on the south end plus the lift station. We put the force main into the first portion that we already have done, but we took that to the old lift station. So now we have the new lift station to install and a gravity section that needs to be yet installed. And we're wanting to move that one forward at this time. That's what this is about. So what we've asked, since Structure Point did all that engineering, we're just having them come back in, verify that the engineering that they've done doesn't affect anything with change orders or anything that they've had to do with the previous work that Great X has done. So what we're asking is for additional compensation for the final design phase, which is $31,600. Additional compensation for bidding phase, which is $6,200. Compensation for the construction phase, which would be having an inspector out there in engineering, being able to work with that, which is $48,900. And compensation for post-construction, which is $3,200, for a total of $89,900. Originally, the cost work was, in 2014, for this work was roughly at $420,000. They're estimating today at 2016, it would be closer to $445,000 to complete this work. And if you have any questions, either Cindy or myself will be glad to.
We had this budgeted in, didn't we, Bob?
Yes, we did. This is budgeted work.
Okay.
So the scope of work, I wasn't on the board when the original project was done, but is to do the design engineering for the lift station and then a gravity sewer to get from the existing lift station to it? Is that-
No, it's not just to get to there. I mean, there's more gravity that goes to the south, and I believe there's some that goes even to the north out of this lift station. That area that goes down to 100 and picks up all those need to be brought into this new lift station or reconnected over to it. And then there needs to be a gravity line run down to basically down to the corner of where Hall Baker Road comes in, where the old Shell station is, in that portion there too. So those would be the two gravity line structures, and then the new lift station, which would be over on the west side of Indianapolis Avenue. So
west side of Indianapolis Avenue, do we own the property for it?
We do not at this point. This is the fairgrounds property,
It's on the
or not
east side.
fairgrounds, so this, the highway department, county highway department. It is their ground right now. Again, we need to do some work with that as far as acquiring that easement or that right-of-way from them. We had a verbal from the county highway superintendent, but that was over a year ago, and his position has changed. I think Craig now is filling that position as a city engineer, or county
County
engineer.
engineer is correct.
And so I believe he's aware of it, so, but that was the way that was left at that time.
Does this work have to be completed before they finish the work on the east side of Indianapolis Avenue, right?
It does not have to be completed before, we just thought it was a timely, why it was all tore up in that area. We've already put our water main down through there up to 100, and we thought it was a good time to get this
I
work
noticed
done.
they started working on the east side of the highway there.
Right, they started stripping some of that old road structure, and that's part of that boulevard that they're refixing. They've got a temporary right now where they'll have to refix that. Now Cindy might be able to describe that more than I can, but that's basically, the sanitary water portions are all in through, other than what we were doing for this new section here, or for this lift station section.
So the part of the new sanitary sewer will be within the Indianapolis Avenue right-of-way
Yes,
and within the current construction limits.
I
Is
believe
that-
so.
Will that be bid separately and then another contractor come in and work in there? While
Yes,
they're still working on the road project? Is that the way that's gonna work?
that's the way I understand it. It will be bid out separately. This, yes.
So there won't be any issues with two contractors conflicting in there at the same time with scheduling their work, and I can foresee an issue there.
I think that they should be fairly well done with pretty much most of what they have to get done. We just want to make sure that we can get whatever we have to do across that road structure before it's completed, if possible, so that we can get that done.
Yeah, I don't know what their schedule is.
They just started back up, and they're a month behind right now, so I think they're probably not going to be done until, I would think somewhere in August, if they can get it done.
So the design will be complete and the construction started before they complete in August?
I believe so.
Any other questions?
Council, you okay with everything?
Yes, sir.
If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the request for approval of amendment number 3 for Structure Point Engineering.
Okay, I make a motion to approve amendment number 3 to owner/engineer agreement between American Structure Point and Lebanon Utilities dated March the 1st, 2012. Oh, that's the date of the original contract, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
Needs to
okay.
stay that
That's the
way.
amendment to, for a not to exceed amount of $89,900 to be signed by Finance Officer Sandra Moore.
Second.
Okay, a motion and second to approve the approval of the contract supplemental for Structure Point. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you.
very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda is informational item titled Reliability Recognition. Sandra?
Real quick, I think the this is already out on Facebook, but I don't think it's been presented to this board. But Mike Whitman had sent this to me a couple weeks ago. I think on March 3rd, we received the Certificate of Excellence in Reliability. That was from the American Public Power Association. So I just wanted to give a congratulations to really all 50 of our employees in the electric department, because it takes everybody to run this place. So great job. Good job.
Yeah, I'll second that. I know my power hasn't
Absolutely.
been off for any extended
No.
period of time for a long time, so it's not off, that's good. Way to go. Okay, thank you, Sandra. Next item on the agenda is approval of claims. An action item.
I'll make a motion we approve the claims.
Second?
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the claims. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Claims are approved. Any other business that may become before the board? Nothing? I will open it up for public comment. Any public comment? Seeing no public? I'd open up for motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion we adjourn.
Second?
It's been made and seconded to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, next meeting is April 6th, 5 o'clock?
5 o'clock, unless we announce an executive session, working session. At this point, none planned.
Okay.
No.
All right, thank you all.